Hi folks, I have taken Pearson's PowerPoint Chapter 12 and kind of customized it for our assignment that we're going to be working on. We have just completed looking at a very important culture when it comes to the civilization of Japan. China and Japan did much interchanging with each other. So some of it is going to look similar to what we've seen before, and other things are going to look very different. Historically, and they talk about this ice age that happened many, many years ago, Japan was not an island. It was joined to the mainland where Korea is now and where China is now. But as the sea level rose, as the Earth got warmer, the Ice Age ended. Then we have these islands. At some times in the history of Japan, the country threw up a curtain around itself and separated itself from influences from other places. And then there were times, we are talking a very old civilization here, maybe 30,000 years ago. So during that long history, you do have times when China and Korea influenced Japan, but much of the time Japan was on its own. The text will go into Jomon pottery, and some of that pottery is the oldest pottery that we have on record for any civilization. This particular thing was made in 500 AD CE, and the bottom portion of it was made to be buried in the ground, and the upper portion of it was meant to ring a tomb, because there were many of these kind of like fence posts, but spaced around at a wider distance, and they were some kind of maybe spiritual watchmen that were guarding the tomb that was on the interior of the circle. So Hanawa, I think they're very interesting myself. I have found a YouTube video, and you're going to laugh about this. It's in Japanese, and so when you hit subtitles, you expect to see English, but nope, you get Japanese subtitles. It's about the rebuilding of this temple. Certain buildings, certain sacred buildings in Japan have been rebuilt on a cycle of every 20 years. They don't want the wood to rot. They don't want the thatch work to leak. And the whole community comes together. It's not just the priests, it's not just the people in the religious order, but the entire town comes together. So I would like you to look at the video, even though it is in Japanese, and I think you'll have your eyes open to a very different way of building something. It is a religious experience to build this old Shinto shrine. Calligraphy comes in again, and it will also be attached to poetry, and they definitely have their own style, different than Chinese. But you'll be looking at something very familiar. This, of course, Buddhism coming out of India, traveling to China, and then it jumps into Japan. And some of these terms are going to be in your flashcards, so pay attention to the flashcards. Now, this is one of the famous shrines. If you looked on a map of Japan, you would see many, many shrines in various locales. This is in Nara, Japan, and I have a friend over in Nara that I met online. He's a photographer and a engineer, environmental engineer. And in his feed, his photo feed, he has featured certain temples, what it's like to walk through these temples. And let's just say it's an amazing visit to make. Now, this is lacquerware, and we've seen it in Japan, or China, but we haven't really talked about it. And I found a really interesting video about how lacquerware is made. And to say it's a time-consuming craft is a huge understatement. Sometimes one piece will take a year or even more than a year, several years to complete. I've gone to museums and I've looked at lacquerware and I've kind of thought to myself, oh hum, it's just kind of a real nice paint job. And I'm so wrong. Lacquerware has a fantastic history, and it has a methodology that would take any artist and occupy them for months and months at a time. So I hope that you will watch the video about how to make lacquerware. And here's our friends, the Buddhists, and there is a little bit of a Japanese twist to Buddhist statues. It's very similar to you see the differences between Indian and Chinese. Now you're seeing the difference between India, China, and Japan. This is another very complicated piece of Buddhist art, and REVEL has a great little video interactive thing to help explain what you are seeing here. Another beautiful temple, and with a nice reflecting pond. This the landscaping was definitely constructed with the same sort of attention to sacredness as the rest of it. It was not just a building put on a lake. A lot of these lakes were excavated and created so that they would complement the structure that was on the shore of it. And another Buddha. And I have to leave this one in here because you've heard about Gilgamesh. That is a myth. You're going to hear about uh, the Odyssey, the Iliad, and those are kind of myths. Well, the tale of Genji is later. I'm thinking 500 or so AD, and it's a story, and some people say that it was the first novel that was ever written. And if my memory is correct, it was written by a woman author. 12th century, I got that one wrong. So this was done in 1100, and it is a scene from the tale of Genji, uh, the husband and the wife in one room, illustrating one part of the tale of Genji. Um, Poetry, very popular, and this is waka, and uh, it's written on a beautiful paper here. This is the page of a book, a very big book, and the calligraphy is so illustrative that it almost blends into the decoration that's on the page. And down here you might see some grass, you might see some leaves, and yet the actual calligraphy is similar. So I would think that there would be no problem in taking this artwork that was done in the 1100s and putting it into a contemporary art gallery today. I think people would love it. It's very abstract and beautiful, even though you can't read the poetry unless you know Japanese. I'm going to leave the talking about this to your REVEL. It has a nice interactive analysis of this is what happens in China in between the two different, when one dynasty falls before the next one starts. And Japan had a similar form of governance. And when one dynasty was wrapping up, then they would see the rebels coming in and burning and looting. And the book will, your textbook will go into this fascinating, huge uh, epic being told on this scroll. One thing that I like when I go to Phoenix Art Museum, in their Asian gallery, they have a mannequin or two that are dressed up in the body armor of the warriors from Japan, the samurais. And when you see it in person, uh, you're just amazed at how careful all of the different pieces are constructed and putting together to protect the warrior. I can't help but thinking about Christianity, and they say there will be a second coming of Jesus. Well, this is a Buddhist, and this is a Buddhist with 25 of his bodhisattvas and other Buddhas coming down to earth to carry away souls that have died. So I guess we could say swing low, sweet chariot. This is an idea from the other side of the world about deities who come down to save the souls of people that have died. This is a Zen Buddhist, and Zen had its own uh, style of painting, generally speaking, It was very monochromatic, and generally speaking, it was linear, a lot of lines in it, and very simple. Some of you have expressed an interest in learning about Buddhism, and a book that I highly recommend. It was written by a German philosophy professor who went to Japan to study Japanese Zen, and it's called Zen in the Art of Archery, and it's by Eugene Herrigel. It's a short book, and it's fairly easy to read. My art professors in college recommended it to me. I read it, I enjoyed it, and I have reread it a few times over the course of my life. So if you're interested in art or you're interested in Buddhism and Zen, that is one way to learn something about it. And this is another Zen master. This is a portrait that was given to a noble person.